Hey guys, this is Pat Jenkins of On the Hill Media and voice of Fayetteville High Bulldogs Athletics. Make sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel, that's On the Hill Media. Make sure you hit the bell for all notifications. As we say, let's get it. And welcome here live from the SWAC on the campus of Fayetteville High School. It's the Casey Dick Show, brought to you by the Grease Pig Lube and Tune and Lindsay and Associates. And Coach will be joining us here shortly, but we're going to open the show with the best defensive coordinator in the state. He was awarded that here recently, Mr. Derek Davis. Coach, welcome back to the Casey Dick Show.
Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
Football coach is something I know you and I consider all day and talk about.
Yeah.
But let's really go back and recap. You guys coming off an off week, but let's go back to the first 2 weeks. From your defense, what are you seeing with such a young group?
Growth. I think when we came into the year, we knew in the back end we returned some guys that had seen a lot of football. And in the front end, we had some kids we were really excited about, but they just haven't played a lot. And they opened up against Cabot. I really thought the front guys handled it pretty well. They did a good job on the run against a really big team with a good tailback. And then, week 2 they get Broken Arrow and they got the road graders out there. And I thought they held up about as good as they could, but just growth. And they kind of got thrown in the fire early. The hope is at some point we play somebody that's not 6'5", 300 pounds across the board, but that's not in the cards yet, so we're just going to keep on fighting.
When you came into the season, I know a lot of people, if there was a question mark about this defense, it was the defensive line. With so much youth, you lose a Jackson Oliver. There's not too many Jackson Olivers walking this campus. But just talk about that group, because you still have Jeremiah Williams and I know a lot of people know this name, Jeremiah Conley, a guy that stepped out, and also Mr. Caden Walters. But, who are some of the other guys, and just the totality of the defensive line? How satisfied are you at this point?
Well, I start, before you get to the kids, I think they're coached by the best defensive line coach in America. And I think nobody does a better job. It doesn't mean more to anybody than does Coach Harris. And no matter who shows up, and those kids are great. We'll talk about them same, but no matter who shows up, he's going to get everything out of them. So I thought with Jeremiah coming back, Jeremiah took extensive snaps. Tate Barnes took extensive snaps last year in relief of J.O. But everybody else was pretty new to the scene. So I knew they would be coached. I knew they would be fundamentally sound. But there's only so much you can do in drill work. There's only so much you can do in practice. There's only so much you can do at a team camp. Like, you really need to play live competition to keep getting better. And he had done a great job with these guys in JV.
Right.
But in getting them to varsity level, like, every game they get better. Like, he's done an amazing job. Conley's long. He's got a huge upside. He's learned how to play on the line of scrimmage. He's got great hands, got good feet, and he's getting strong. He's so strong in the weight room. If you watch him, like he's for his length, the leg lifts are really impressive. Just because he's not, he's really long. It's a deep squat, but he does them right. Jeremiah is one of the strongest kids on the team. Slater, the other nose guard, sophomore nose guard, a very, very strong kid. Now Caden Walters, just a kid that's turned himself into a player.
Right.
And he went to work and he does drills like crazy. He works on technique, but he works like the madman in a weight room, and he's a guy that's made himself into a player you can count on down to down.
New linebacker coach, Coach Craig, comes in. I know you've had to replace 3 coaches. You brought in Coach Craig, Coach Clayton, and Coach the take shape, Coach.
Yeah, the hardest one, the initial one, was replacing Coach Brett. And I don't know that you ever replace a guy like Coach Brett, but if there was the next one over, he and Coach Pank were college teammates, really close friends. Coach Pank understood our terminology, and getting him here was a big gift for us. Coach Scrimshire from Springdale was another one because he works with Coach Chick. Coach Chick shared common terminology and a common background. And when he came, he worked for JR. He worked for some guys around that were pretty good, and he understood our terminology and kind of our scheme. That helped a lot. And then getting a guy – we kind of lacked in a room wasn't a guy with a lot of experience as far as like a 25, 30-year guy. We're all fairly young. And going to get a guy like Coach Craig that had 31 years of experience, has seen a lot of football and done it at a bunch of different levels and a bunch of different places was huge for us. And just having his wisdom to lean on and ask questions to. And he's done a killer job.
Now, one thing I need to ask you is you've been with Casey since he's been a head coach in high school
Every
football.
game.
Derek, how have you seen Coach Dick grow in that position?
I think every year your perspective's a little different. And I think for Casey, he goes all in on stuff. And I think that the first year, and probably the first 4 or 5 years, you're so all in on the details that some of the big picture stuff you don't understand as much. And I think at this point in his career, like, you're starting to see a guy that's starting to put it all together. Like, he's been down there and done the details. And now he understands how everything works together. And I think big picture-wise, we're getting more right than we've ever gotten right before. Some of that's experience. Some of it's comfortability with the staff, understanding the school, understanding the situation. But a lot of it's just growth. And, I mean, it's kind of like you talk about the D-line. Like, until you're doing it live and in person every day, there's no way to replicate it. And I think that he's a guy that draws on experience and continually gets better every single year. And, I think turned himself into one of the best coaches in the state.
Talking about experience at that linebacker position, Will Price and Grayson Jerry, two kids that, just have stuck it out. Played a little bit as sophomores. I know a lot more special teams for Will. But, his junior year, he starts to make a name for himself. Talk about just having that experience with those two guys that's played so much ball in your linebacker room.
Will is one of my favorite stories just because he's a guy that kind of as a freshman didn't understand how to practice as well, but liked football. And he was always a fun kid to be around. And I thought that somewhere in his sophomore, junior year, he really understood the progression through JV, and he went and killed in a bunch of JV games and put himself on special teams. And every time you put him in the game, he would do something where you had to put him back in the game. And it got really hard to keep him out. Like, he's blocking every punt, he's making every tackle. Like, the thing I remember about him last year before we blocked punts, and we're a Cabot, and we're kicking off. And, I mean, the ball's hitting the guy catching, and Price is right behind the ball. His kickoff coverage was outstanding. And you see a kid that runs fast. He open field tackles well. His energy is infectious. It's hard to keep him off the field. Now, Grayson's pass was a little different. Grayson's really talented. He played in a group where we usually keep one guy a year at nickel. And when Noah Jansky graduated, Grayson really kind of became the best football playing nickel in that group, and that manifested itself about week 5 of last year.
Right.
He had to go into the Rogers game, and it was just a night and day difference between he and the cat he was replacing. Like, he open field tackles well, he covers well, he competes like crazy. Now we gotta work on our emotions a little bit, but I mean, because it matters to him. Like, how he performs matters to him, and the way we play matters to him. And, he was a kid who we talked into playing JV a little bit as a junior.
Right.
But really just to make sure he was getting all the reps he needed to have success. And then once he moved on to the varsity level last year, game after game, he was a guy. In fact, when we put in some of the defensive stuff we did against PA, he was one of the guys that we kind of built it around. He did a killer job.
Talking about two inside guys, I mean, you've had some pretty good middle linebackers here over the last 3 to 4 years, and I don't think that's going to be any different. They might have a little youth on their side with Tidwell and Palladino. Talk about those guys, and what is the ceiling for those two going forward?
I'll talk about Jax first because he's the oldest one. Jax is the junior. He's replacing his brother, which he may be the only person outside of me and his brother Rhett and maybe Miss Dana to understand how big a job that is. And he's been up to the challenge 100%. He takes hard coaching. He knows what his limitations are, and he goes outside of, as far as investing in the knowledge, he goes outside of the physical part to make sure he's ready in every other aspect. He's working like crazy in the weight room, and his effort's off the charts. I said Jax is a fun kid to coach. And he's kind of learning me. Like, he's learning how to call a game. He's learning how to communicate. And I think as that comes on, he'll get better and better. Spence Palladino is long and fast and mean and fun. And, similar to Jax, like he's learning how to play varsity football and adjusting to the speed of the game. He's a little bit different player. A lot of times when he's out there with Jax. So Jax can manage a lot of the academic part right now. Spence is starting to take some of that on. But it's not scared of anything, man. I mean, he was getting down we played a Broken Arrow. He's fitting gaps like a madman, and those guys outweigh him by 125, 140 pounds. Bunch of tackles in the backfield. I mean, guy's a dog.
Guy that I cannot go without speaking on, and I believe he just made an unofficial trip down to Alabama.
Yeah.
Will Caston has an Arkansas Razorback offer. Talk about that kid, because, I mean, this is a kid that you've been really high on. We've had conversations over the years, and this is a guy that you had a lot of good praise for.
We tried to keep him out of the fire for a long time last year, just trying to let him get his feet underneath him. And probably he was probably talented enough to go into more games than he did. But his body, his football knowledge and his body were kind of coming on with him. And as he's learned to play on the line of scrimmage, he's a real force. I mean, he runs like a deer. He can get his fingertips to like 11.5 feet. He covers so much ground, not only running, like, the Greenwood throws their number one receiver. We blow a tackle, and I think that kid thinks he's home free, and he runs 15 yards and Caston smokes him out of bounds. And he's so fast, but like in coverage, he's a real asset, because when you're trying, our linebackers a lot of times are playing some sort of underneath zone. Well, when you're long and rangy and you can jump, now that zone, instead of being 8, if I'm out there, I can reach to 7 foot, so I could probably jump to 7'6". But when he's out there, it's 11 foot tall.
Oh, wow.
And he runs well. That's how he got the picks against Cabot. So for us, like, his understanding of concepts has come a long way. His body obviously just keeps getting better and better. He runs well. He drops into coverage well, and we make him and Will Price. They probably have a rougher grow up than anybody else, except maybe Jax, because we make Jax remember everything. But we make those two cats play everywhere. Like, they might play 3 positions Friday night. They may play 4. And in the process of doing that, like, they've learned to be better defensive ends, better outside linebackers. But Will's going to keep getting better and better and better. He's a little heavier now than he was last year, which helps him some. And he's super fast, and he's a joy to coach.
There may not be another position more experience on this entire football team than what you have in that back end, with 2 committed defensive backs in Brody Jones and Kendrick Williams. You have Charlie Garden and Cole Mobley, who played safety last year, now transitioned over to corner.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk about that group. And, Coach, how valuable is it to have that type of experience back there in that secondary in particular?
Oh, it's incredibly valuable. But they all do something different. They're all good at something. Like, they all have a niche. Like, Kendrick can play safety, and he can come down. Like, he came down against Cabot and fit and tackle guys, just real good coming downhill on that play. But he covers like a corner. Mob does both really well. Like, he'll line up and hit you, and he can go play coverage at corner. He's long, and he can get in your hip pocket and knock the ball away. Brody is probably the most physical corner I've ever coached. I mean, in a different world, on a different team, he's probably an outside linebacker. He's so physical, but he covers well. He moves well in space. Charlie Garden may be the most football savvy kid on the team as far as understanding where to sit, where the ball's going, getting everybody lined up. Like, he is kind of in the back end what we make Jax do in the front, as far as just he translates all the calls. He's in the film. He knows what's happening, and he's directing traffic back there. He's really good at that. And then you didn't talk about the younger one, but like CJ. CJ played significant last year against PA,
yes.
and just pure talent, like as far as footwork. All the 4 you named, I don't know that any of those 4 have better feet than CJ. So there's a huge upside to him. And, I mean, they all do. They're all good. Like, they're easy to coach. They're competitive. And they've taken coaching this year. I mean, Coach Pank's challenged them a lot. And I think from week 1 to week 2, the biggest jump was that group.
Now, I know you guys had an off week last week, but what does an off week look like for the defensive coordinator, Derek? I mean, what all went into last week?
It's probably harder than a regular week, just because you're trying to make sure it's like your last chance to make all the hay you need to make the last winter. So you go through and watch all the film, as far as you're looking at the opponents you have coming up, and then you're going back to watch your own film. And the majority of last week was geared at correcting or improving things that we need to be better at, while introducing some concepts we believe we're going to see in the next few weeks, and getting some reps of some stuff that we need to polish up. We opened the season with 3 teams that use tight ends, they use fullbacks, and then we're going to play 2 teams that they're not centered around that style. So making sure that our kids are still able to get in all the looks we need to get into, and then transitioning to getting ready to go to Texas and make a road trip and try to make sure we show up prepared. We scout about 3 weeks out, try to make sure all our film work's done, try to make sure the scouting reports are as complete as they can be to this point. And then, starting yesterday, it's just all about Texas High.
Now, I know a lot of people, and you're real big with building team chemistry. I mean, you have a leadership group. Talk about some of, how that went this year, and who are some of the guys that, that have been some of the leaders that you've kind of put
good.
forth.
They were good. It's a lot. There are starters on both sides of the ball. I don't want to name one because I'll miss one. I think there were 25 kids, which is record numbers, and every position group was represented. But I think what's probably helped in the last couple of weeks more than anything, like I picked Caleb Johnson out. Like when you watch a kid go through some pain to come back out there and lay it on the line for his team, like that's how you build team chemistry. When guys go out there and don't play as well and they respond and the people around them rally, like to me, we give them a bunch of tools in that room, but seeing them go do it, like that's what's going to set this team apart. Like there's a bunch of kids that committed to a way of life through the winter, but the thing that's going to separate this group is they've gone out there and lived that. Like I said, I picked Caleb out, but there's a bunch of kids that maybe struggled week 1 and came back week 2 and just killed it, or maybe had struggles in the practice and bowed up the next one. But usually, we start that class. All the quarterbacks are in it. I put every one of my players in it, so I'm familiar with some kids that are in there. Bunch of offensive linemen, and I mean, I would say this team has some of the better leadership of any group we've had here.
Todd Barber, who we're going to have on today's show momentarily, comes in as a new strength and conditioning coach here at Fayetteville. How big is an addition like Todd coming in? How big is that for this program going forward?
I think it helps a lot. At our previous school, we had a strength and conditioning guy. And one of the things I think Coach Dick and myself learned then was more than just the strength stuff, which everybody focuses on, is we reduced a bunch of soft tissue injuries, like their ability to keep your kids in the best position to play the game was pretty awesome. And they basically, having a guy like that, like they approach strength and conditioning like we do football. Like they're film nerds, they're on all those weird podcasts, like they're doing the same thing over there. So now your kids are getting the best of both worlds. I've heard it said too, we talk to college guys that guy kind of helps set the tone. Like if your head coach is your number one, then maybe your off-season head coach or your number 2 is a strength coach, and the way he handles the kids. And I think for Coach Barber, just in watching him, I don't have a great deal of experience in strength and conditioning, but in watching him force toughness on the kids, whether they want it or not, make them go be tough, make them do hard things, and then give them tools to have success and celebrate that success with them. I mean, it's been awesome to see our kids grow up.
Last question, Coach. I want to thank you for taking time out here on the KC Dick Show, brought to you by the Grease Pig Lube and Tune and Lindsay and Associates. But 2 games in, if there was one word that could describe this year's 2025 Fayetteville Bulldog defense, Coach, what would that word be?
They're fast. Man, they can run outside of the first 4 guys in the middle of the field. Everybody else can roll. Like we could probably put together 2 good 4x1 teams.
Yes, we could.
We can run.
Well, guys, hey, we want to thank Derek for coming on the show. We'll be back with much, much more here on the KC Dick Show. You're watching the KC Dick Show on the Hill Media TV. Hey guys, this is Pat Jenkins of On the Hill Media and voice of Fayetteville High Bulldogs Athletics. Make sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel, that's On the Hill Media. Make sure you hit the bell for all notifications. As we say, let's get it. And welcome back here live at the SWAC on the campus of Fayetteville High School. It's the KC Dick Show, brought to you by the Grease Pig Lube and Tune and Lindsay and Associates. And I'm joined now here on today's show by the new and like the best there is. When you talk about the GOAT, this guy has to be in that conversation as far as strength and conditioning. New strength and conditioning head man, Mr. Todd Barber. Welcome to Fayetteville, Todd.
Well, thanks, Pat. Happy to be here. Happy to be back. Yeah.
I know you've had a stint at the university, several universities, Arkansas, Washington State. I mean, you've been all around Owasso High School. You've been all around, Todd. But why Fayetteville?
You know, we were here for 12 years. My sons grew up here. We loved the community. It was rough to leave. It was hard to leave about 5 years ago, but the opportunity was pretty big, so I had to take it. And about after 9 months, we're like, man, we need to get back. So, yeah, it was rough to leave. It was super happy to come back.
Why so passionate about strength and conditioning?
Man, I was an athlete. I did 3 sports growing up, like all of us did. Had major injury that cost me a lot and cost me further down the road, and that's when I got into it. There wasn't much about it at the time. I mean, we're talking 80s, as in 1980s.
Right.
So I didn't like what the PT had me do right when I got back after my surgery, so I just did it on my own, which was shocking that my parents let me do that, but kind of fell in love with it, dove into it. Still, my trajectory still wanted to be a football coach, and you know, I was able to get a job at Oregon State University under Coach Erickson, and he brought me there to be a strength coach for a year, and then I was going to step into a GA role. And after my year of being in the weight room and working with different teams besides football, took over baseball, softball, men's and women's golf, and fell in love with the development part of athletics.
Now, you have quite the story now. A lot of people may not know, but this guy here had a stroke. And you see how healthy he is right now. I mean, Todd, talk about that story and, you know, how that's even enhanced your belief in strength and conditioning.
You know, it was kind of obviously out of the blue, like strokes are. You know, I was probably maybe as an adult the strongest I'd been. Feeling really good, which if you work out a lot is you're shocked if you're feeling great instead of getting out of bed going, oh my God. You know, I was feeling really good.
Right.
So that should have been a sign, but you know, woke up one morning and I had a stroke when I was asleep, and it didn't affect me for about 6-7 hours later. So but it affected my left side, and luckily I was as strong as I was at the time to help battle back. You know, and it's one of those things that I'm still working on. My left side is still not awesome, but it's better than the alternative.
Right.
I'd say my left arm and everything is left side, upper body wise, is probably about 75%. Lower body is a little bit better, but it's been a work in progress. It was challenging. It was awesome, the love that I got from the university and the student athletes. I think you were there when the softball team.
Yes.
You know, it's awesome in athletics, is that tight-knit community, that family. That is another reason why I love athletics and strength and conditioning, but the athletics part of it. But, you know, it's a battle. I'm still battling. Talked to several people about it. I've got reached out to by 4 or 5 different gentlemen that have had strokes, and they saw my story on Facebook or whatever, and they reached out to me, and I've talked some guys through some stuff. And you know, I try to hide it a little bit. Like, the kids don't know that. You know, most of my athletes, especially now here, don't know that. And you know, they ask me to do stuff. I'm like, man, I haven't bench pressed since 2018. My arm just doesn't work that way. But it's, you know, I try to hide it and keep it on the down low, and I do pretty good at it. Now you just got the cat out of the bag, but, which is awesome. But, you know,
that's a great story.
Yeah, you know, working and never giving up is a huge thing, a huge part of my life, and it's been something that my dad instilled in my mindset. And the injuries I've gone through and just being resilient, which I try to get across to the kids about resiliency and just that grit of, hey, not every day is going to be great,
right,
but it's how you approach the next day, and don't let one bad day become 2, 3, 4, 5. So, if I would have done that after my stroke, I wouldn't be here where I am today. So
you took over January 1. Working with this football team and these athletes. And when you look at the football program, talk about just the preparation and what these guys have gone through, and how have you seen this team grow?
Sorry, June 2nd I got
June
here.
2nd.
Yep,
You're
June
right.
2nd.
You're
Yep.
right.
It's awesome. Athletes are athletes. And I keep getting asked by, I got asked by, when I went to Washington State, all the coaches, all the kids, hey, what's the difference between SEC and Washington? And I didn't want to tell them. I didn't want to say, the difference is night and day, but athletes are athletes.
Right.
And the Owasso kids were asking me, and now the Fayetteville kids are asking me, and athletes are athletes. They want structure, they need structure, they want to be held accountable, even though they don't know it at the time, but they put in the work, and if they put in the work, you see results, and these kids they've done everything I've asked them to, which is awesome. And as a strength coach, especially coming up when I did, that's what you expect.
Right.
It's do your job, do what you're told, and you will get better. I keep telling these kids that I will give them all the tools to be great, and I can't make them do that,
right,
but it's up to them to take those tools and help me help them. And I'll do that, and I'll do everything I can to make them unbelievable athletes. So,
what would be your assessment of this football team? If there was one word to describe this group, Todd, what would that word be?
Gritty. I think we proved that against BA.
Yes.
BA is one of the biggest high school football teams I've ever seen. Their up front guys were monsters. And warming up, I looked at Casey and was like, whew, dog, we're going to be in a fist fight here, man. These guys are giants. And, we were gritty, man. Our guys just didn't care about the size. They got hit in the mouth, and they punched right back. And we fought and fought and fought and stayed right there. And when Casey said, hey, we're going to go for 2, I thought I was going to make it. I was going to go, and then I heard Matt in that huddle, because I went out to that huddle, and I heard Matt say, Caleb, get behind me, find me, I'll get you in the end zone, man. I was like, yeah, we're going to win. That's a dog right there saying that.
Which leads me into my next question about the leadership, guys, that, because I spent a lot of time during the off season when you were putting these guys through the grind, watching them, Matt Heckman and Caleb Johnson. I've watched how you really hold those two guys to a big time standard. Just talk about those two and how much they mean to this team.
Yeah, those guys are straight up dogs. They're quiet leaders. They're not outspoken and look at me. They're lead by example, and they're, like Matt said, get behind me and I'll take you to the end zone. And Caleb is 5'0" going against these monster D linemen and linebackers from BA, and he's like, give me the ball.
Right.
I will get in the end zone.
Right.
So just leading by example and putting the work in. Those days out there on the football field with the Prowlers and crushing it, those are hard days. And I know they're hard, and so I feel for that, but I want that to be hard just for moments like we had against BA.
Right.
Late, going into overtime and hey, just think about all that hard work you put in. And, in your head, you might have been like, man, this guy's nuts. And then look at me like this man is outside his mind. But it pays off.
Right.
And I've seen it for 30 years. I've seen that kind of effort and that kind of mindset and that kind of work in the off-season pay off in the season, during the season. So, but those two guys are just straight-up dogs. We got a lot of them, man. We got some guys up front. We got some skill guys. We got some defensive guys that fly around. And, honestly, I don't think we have a really outspoken guy. Now, Will Price is just a ball of energy, obviously. Big Will, we call him Big Will, Little Will, which Will Price does not like that. But, those guys are more outspoken, and I've put kind of Will in that spot to be more out front and outspoken, and Will Price was always that way. But those are two great young men that have a lot going for them and a huge future ahead of them. And guys respect them as well because they talk, but they also put in the work.
Describe a typical week for this football team as far as, you putting them through their weekly workouts.
Yeah, right now, we're in season stuff. We come in on Sundays. We do a recovery lift, which they're having a hard time understanding, and athletes in general, you don't just lift to get big and strong and huge, but you also lift to recover.
Right.
So we have a recovery lift on Sunday to get their bodies right. We come back on Monday, and that's our heavier day. It's farther away from the game, so that's when we're going to lift a little bit heavier. And then we'll hit Wednesday as our dynamic effort day to get the CNS fired up, get them ready to play on Friday, and make sure that everything's firing on all cylinders.
What's your general outlook for not only are you just the strength coach for Fayetteville, but for the entire athletic program here in Fayetteville? What's the general picture of where you see this strength program going under your leadership?
Yeah, I want it to take off. I want the junior highs to mirror what we're doing. Obviously, scale down to more basic general stuff. But I have a way of doing things that I've been pretty successful doing that, and I just want to spread that. And like our freshmen this year, they this summer they came in and I just took them through movement pattern basics and crushed them for about a month.
Right.
Without touching a weight. So I'm an old school guy because I came up in the 80s, but more is not better. You don't have to do heavy.
Right.
And when I first got in the field, that's kind of the way it was. It was every day was a little bit heavier, and that doesn't make sense for athletes.
Right.
So, just taking those baby steps with that freshman group with doing body weight, doing tempo work, and they felt it. There were some dogs in there that we had some kids in that freshman class that can get it, and I was wiping them out just with body weight stuff. I think they were a little shocked.
Well, there you have it. The strength and conditioning coach here at Fayetteville, Arkansas. Fayetteville High School going to do a great job. You just don't understand how blessed it is to have a guy. This is the GOAT, I'm telling y'all. We're going to be back with much, much more here on the KC Dick Show. You're watching the KC Dick Show on the Hill Media TV. Hey guys, this is Pat Jenkins of On the Hill Media and voice of Fayetteville High Bulldogs Athletics. Make sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel that's On the Hill Media. Make sure you hit the bell for all notifications. As we say, let's get it. And welcome back live here at the SWAC. It's the KC Dick Show on the campus of Fayetteville High School. And I'm joined now by, I might start calling this man Mr. Swole. That's what I might start doing as he can continue to work out. But welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks, Scott.
Busy week this week as you guys travel to Texas High, your home state. How important and how big is this for you, being a Texas high school former player and being able to go back into your home state with your football team?
Yeah, I mean it's big, but it's not it's nothing that we're going to make an extraordinary deal out of. It's the next game on our schedule, so obviously that's the most important one. But obviously when we have, the opportunity or chance to get back down there to go play a good quality football team, we want to make sure that our guys are well prepared and ready. We started last week and doing some things, but really, last week focused on fundamentals and getting some guys healthy and right in order to make a run. So. Just overall was pleased with last week, how that went, and looking forward to getting back into game mode for sure.
When you look at this Texas High football team, what are some of the things you guys are going to have to do first and foremost on the offensive side of the football versus their defense to have some success this Friday night?
Yeah, they're very, very athletic, do a great job as far as schematically lining up and, gap integrity, making sure everything's taken away, and they got a guy for each gap. So, on defense, they fly around, they move around really, really well, try to mix it up and bring some pressures, play some different coverages in the back end. But overall, just really well coached on both sides of the ball. And on offense, got a couple of playmakers back there in Chidarian Ball, and they move him around and do some different things with him. Very explosive kid, and got a big offensive line, obviously. And, the left tackle's a really good football player.
Right.
Quarterback's very athletic. Likes to get out of the pocket and do some things, so we'll have to do a good job of making sure we contain him. And our open field tackling's got to be pretty good. When we have the opportunity to make a tackle, we've got to be able to make a tackle and just limit the amount of times that they can get explosive plays and make sure that we're fundamentally sound.
Everybody in the doghouse going to make their way health-wise to the football game on Friday night?
Everybody should be ready to rock and roll.
So what does the rest of the week look like? And when are you guys – what's the travel situation there? The rest of the week, what's that picture for you?
Yeah, we'll have a normal week of practice today. We'll go outside and have 16 periods, and then on Tuesday we'll have 20 with some film and weights and get some guys ready to rock and roll. They had weights this morning, and Wednesday they'll have weights again. Our varsity guys will, in some meetings. And then 18 periods on Wednesday. We'll keep it a normal Wednesday. Thursday will be, pretty standard and normal. And then Friday we'll load the bus and get them up here, do a walkthrough before we go, load the bus at 10 and make our way down there to Texarkana and have a little 4.5, 5 hour bus drive.
Last message, Coach. You'll get in this camera and tell everybody why it would be, if they can't make it, why they should watch the game, or if they can, why be available Friday night, 7 o'clock to support.
Yeah, I think you'll see two good football teams going at it. I really do. I think when you look at the things that obviously Texas High has been able to do, in the last couple of years, 3, 4, 5 years, Coach Stanford's done a great job with that group, getting them ready, prepared. They've played on or past Thanksgiving in the state of Texas for the last, 3, 4, 5 years as well, and won a lot of ball games. So he's done a really good job. Our guys will obviously be prepared and ready and to make that trip. I think we've got some experience with guys that know how to handle a bus ride, know how to handle a trip. Took some long bus trips last year, and they're an experienced group. So obviously we'll lean on that as far as that from those guys and have ourselves ready to go and have a good football game.
Well, we want to thank you, Coach. Arkansas and Texas, you have it coming up Friday night. Fayetteville High travels to Texarkana, Texas to take on the Texas High Tigers. We will be on the broadcast with pregame show at 6:30, followed by kickoff at 7. We want to thank our guests, Coach Derek Davis, defense coordinator here at Fayetteville, and also the head strength coach himself, Mr. Todd Barber. For myself, Coach Dick, producer Demetrius Johnson, hey, it's been the KC Dick Show live on the Hill Media TV. And, Coach, what's those last words I always say?
Let's get it, Pat.
We'll see you next week. Hey, guys, this is Pat Jenkins of On the Hill Media and voice of Fayetteville High Bulldogs Athletics. Make sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's On the Hill Media. Make sure you hit the bell for all notifications. As we say, let's get it.